Huawei.
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 5G.
Huawei.
Huawei.
5G.
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 5G. 5G. 5G. 5G.
5G.
5G.
5G.
5G.
5G. 5G.
5G. 5G.
5G.
5G.
5G.
Huawei.
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 Huawei. 5G. 5G.
5G.
5G.
5G.
5G.
5G. 5G. 5G. 5G.
5G. 5G.
5G.
5G.
5G.
5G. 5G. 5G.
5G.
Huawei.
5G, you've probably heard of it. 5G buses, 5G tractors, 5G mining, 5G surgery, 5G ice makers, 5G everything.
5G.
But what is all this 5G nonsense? And why is it that it's actually a bunch of bullshit? Hey, so what is it you've got over there? Oh, I see. Just the most badass wallet in the world. If you're looking for a gift to give somebody, and yeah, holiday seasons are coming up, so you know what? It's time to start shopping. You cannot go wrong with an Exter. If you go to shop.exter.com/SerpentZA, you're going to get a fantastic discount. And if you use the code SerpentZA, you will get a further discount. So go check it out. Go and grab yourself one of the most badass wallets in the world. And now, back to the show. So no doubt you've seen the word 5G thrown around quite a lot. It could have been by your domestic cellular companies, the people that sell you your mobile phones. Or, of course, you've probably seen it in Chinese propaganda.
5G.
It's linked very often to Huawei. You hear about Huawei 5G. You hear about all these things coming out of China, all these great technological inventions, and there's always a big 5G slapped on them. No matter what they are, it's always 5G this or 5G that. So what is 5G? Very simple, it's just a communication standard. A cellular communication standard. As we all know, technology progresses. We started out with 1G, which was just analog. We moved up to 2G, which was then digital, then 3G, which actually allowed people to start kind of really using their phones to browse the internet and stuff. 4G really brought like speeds, and we were able to like watch YouTube and do all sorts of things on your phone. And 5G is just the next natural progression to that. So basically 5G just means faster cellular speeds. In other words, you get a higher bitrate and you get a higher bandwidth. So that basically means that you can stream larger files, watch larger videos, copy files over from your phone, things like that, And of course it has industrial application and so on and so forth. But it really is just a faster 4G. But I'll tell you a little secret. 5G is not all it's made up to be. And 5G is actually just a bunch of nonsense and a marketing tool for China's propaganda. Now, it's no secret that China doesn't innovate. Everything coming out of China is a copy. It's either licensed, legitimately bought, stolen, borrowed, the result of industrial espionage and spying, who knows. But everything coming out of China is just a copy of something that already exists. Sure, China can throw a lot of money, the government can throw a lot of money and create a lot of something. So for instance, high-speed rails and so on. China is very famous for having a fantastic high-speed rail network. It's very big, it's built very quickly. But of course, high-speed rails are not anything new. They've been around for ages. It's something that has been fully researched, tested, developed elsewhere. The Chinese government just spent a lot of money putting down a lot of rail. But of course, the CCP understands that the world sees China as just a big knockoff factory and not capable of actually innovating or making anything new, and they want to change that image. So they chose a champion. And their champion is Huawei. Well, they chose two. They chose a lesser champion, ZTE or ZTE, whatever you want to call it. But these are the two. Huawei being the number one champion. Now, dispel any illusions that Huawei is a private company or anything like that. It is completely 100% tied to the Communist Party of China in every way, shape, or form. We saw the hostage diplomacy that happened over Meng Wanzhou and the Michaels. That was all over Huawei. The Chinese government will always step in to protect the interests of Huawei. And of course, you got lots of Communist Party members in Huawei who own Huawei, who are in the offices of Huawei, who run the operations. It is beholden to the Chinese Communist Party. So Huawei, the champion of the Communist Party of China, found out that it could get a lot of market penetration overseas, abroad, by undercutting the competition. And what happened was, it's very simple. I'll try to lay it down like this. You've got companies like Nokia, Ericsson, the big boys that have been around forever, the guys that actually invented this stuff. they would go and propose to build a cellular tower and say, hey, it's going to cost, I don't know how much this stuff costs. I'm just going to say, let's say $100,000 to put up a tower. Huawei comes along and says, oh, we'll build the same tower with the same technology because, we stole it for $20,000. And so, of course, Nokia, Ericsson, all the big boys, they cannot compete with those prices. And how does Huawei get its prices so low? Because the equipment itself actually costs more than that. Well, it's quite simple. Number one, they did not have to spend the money on the R&D in order to develop this stuff, because it's been proven that Nortel Networks, Cisco, various other places had its intellectual property stolen by Huawei. And in fact, Huawei is the reason Nortel went under, because they undercut them selling their own products in their own markets. But the Chinese government subsidizes Huawei. So they're like, don't worry, we'll actually pay for those towers. So you can charge $1. It doesn't matter because it's not going to cost you anything. So this is a fantastic way to get Chinese hardware, Huawei, into other markets. I mean, it's a good business strategy because number one, now you actually have your products all over the world. So now you can provide support services. There's ongoing clients. But on top of that, there's another more sinister side to this. And this is, of course, the spying allegations. And they're not allegations. Let's be quite honest. Backdoors have been found in Huawei equipment. The Communist Party of China does control Huawei. Huawei is beholden, like every Chinese company, by the way, to the Communist Party of China. It is the law in China that if the Chinese Communist Party needs a company to do something or provide information or whatever the case, that they must do that. There is no way around it. It's not like in a free market where a company like Apple can say, no, we're not going to release our clients' personal data to the government because we believe in privacy or something. No, in China, Communist Party comes to Huawei or ByteDance or, like TikTok or whatever and says, hey, listen, there's a guy there, his name's Jim Smith. I want to get every single detail about him. I want to know his movements. I want to know his passwords. I want to know his activity. And Huawei or ByteDance or whoever will be like, sure, here you go. And that's because they don't have a choice. So anyway, Huawei's got its infrastructure all over the world. And so the Communist Party of China realized that this is a good way to get market penetration. This is a good way to get the name of China out there is through telecommunications equipment. And so they put forth this 5-year plan. You see, 5G was just new and just starting to be adopted. Remember, 5G is not something invented by China, by the way. Surprise, surprise. 5G is, of course, the result of many different companies, Qualcomm being one of the top dogs in that game. But basically, there's a whole bunch of telecommunication companies, and they all decide on a standard. They decided on 5G and, what the spectrums are going to be and the bandwidth and all that nonsense. So, I'm not going to get technical about it. You can look it up. But the fact of the matter is 5G is just a standard. So China decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to push on 5G. We're going to be the world leader in 5G. We're going to be known for 5G. Everybody's going to think that China is so advanced and amazing because we're just going to go overboard with this stuff. And that's what they've done, is they've gone overboard with this stuff. They've been installing 5G towers all over China. And if you were to believe Chinese propaganda, you would think that China's fully 5G and that the rest of the world isn't 5G and no one knows what's going on when it comes to 5G except China. Not true, of course. 5G is implemented worldwide. It's not some special technology that China owns. The only difference is, like the high-speed rails, China's just thrown huge amounts of money at putting up base stations all over. Turns out it's been very inefficient in China because the amount of energy that's used to power 5G base stations is far greater than 4G base stations. So it costs telecommunication companies a huge amount of money to keep these antennas running. So what a lot of telecommunication companies in China have been doing is actually turning off their 5G antennas at night during non-peak times, switching back to 4G. Because number one, 4G uses a lot less power. And another thing about 4G technology is it actually has a much greater range than 5G. I mean, think about it. Whenever you travel outside of a major city, you'll see your phone goes from 5G down to 4G, maybe down to 3G. And in very, very bad places, like if you're in the middle of the desert or something, and if you can pick up a signal, it'll be Edge or, 3G or something. It'll be very low signal. And that's because these worse technologies, these slower technologies, generally have a better penetration and a better range. So anyway, Let's get onto the whole 5G farce. And that is this nonsense that 5G is some kind of cure-all, amazing, new, cutting-edge technology. That if you slap a 5G label on something, it suddenly makes it amazing.
What is the big deal about 5G?
This is supposed to be a fully autonomous hydrogen-powered tractor. It's supposed to talk to satellites with 5G technology. It's supposed to be able to go out there and do all this stuff autonomously, you see? This was supposed to be one of China's top 10 tech innovations. Now, take a look at this. This is their CG representation of this hydrogen-powered tractor.
State media.
This is supposed to be the technical insides of this tractor. Look at it. It looks high-tech. Guess what? One of our subscribers on the subreddit is actually works in 3D animation. And he went and he found a $7 asset pack online, okay, for 3D objects. And look what he found. Ooh, what's that? What is that?
Oh no, China.
What could that be? That looks like part of the tractor. What he did was he's like, okay, he's going to make himself a hydrogen-powered vehicle for China. Let's take a look. Let's see what it looks like. This is his hydrogen-powered cow. If you pull up any Chinese state media propaganda YouTube channel or website and you search 5G, you're just going to get inundated with nonsense. Like I said, 5G mining, 5G tractors, 5G this and that, 5G powered hydrogen cows. It's all nonsense. Because if you look at the technology they're talking about, for instance, let's say surgery. They somehow think that having a faster cellular connection is going to make something more accurate. It's not true. The bandwidth required to, say, for instance, control a robotic arm is very low. It doesn't require a huge amount of bandwidth. That kind of thing can be done. And let's be honest, if people are going to be doing surgery remotely, it's going to be through a proper wired network. You're not going to be running it through a cellular network. If you're going to be doing something like controlling the movements of a bus or a tractor or so on, there are so many more efficient ways to do that because it's low bandwidth stuff. I mean, we've all had an RC car, right? When you're a kid, you have an RC car, a little radio transmitter, and you move it around. You don't need some fancy next generation cellular network to control a remote control car. You can use a very simple radio transmitter. You can really use a very simple device to control something like that. And also putting something on a public cellular network is probably not the best idea. But, you know, we don't need to get into the actual logistics of all of this. What I want to prove to all of you right now is that this whole idea of 5G making something better and more high-tech is actually just a big farce. It's just nonsense. It's like a marketing term. You know, you get those Bluetooth toothbrushes. Yeah, you do get them. I think it's a stupid idea and it's just wasteful and nonsense. But apparently it tells you when it's time to rechange the head or something. But you get Bluetooth toothbrushes. What if I put a 5G receiver in there and I give you a 5G toothbrush? Is that going to make you suddenly think like, wow, that's so advanced, I'm going to go get one? Guess what? It's going to do the exact same thing as a Bluetooth toothbrush. No difference at all. The only difference is that the connection between the toothbrush and your app on your phone will be faster. And it doesn't need to be. And there will be no difference. And it cannot see any difference. It's like now with antioxidants, you know, you buy something in the shop and it says like non-GMO. Now you look at it and you're like, oh, that must mean it's better for me. I'm just going to buy it anyway. But meanwhile, it's still full of crappy chemicals and stuff, you know? The thing is, 5G technology isn't suddenly going to make things better. All it does is allow cellular devices to communicate a little bit faster to the base station. That's it. And in fact, it's worse in some applications, like I said, with range, distance, things like that. So if you're out on a farm, for instance, and you want to control stuff far away, if you're going to use cellular technology, it's actually probably better for you to use 4G or previous generation technology because you'll be able to put that remote-controlled sprinkler or whatever it is further away from the base station than you would with a 5G base station. I really just wanted to have this discussion because there are quite a few people out there who seem to think that China's got some crazy high-tech thing going on here with 5G and not realizing that it's just the same technology that your iPhone is using when you connect to your base station, if you're in the States or in Europe or so on and so forth. Yes, most countries aren't going to spend the money to put a 5G transmitter in a rural area because it's not efficient and it's not necessary in most cases. I have to give props to China. Having traveled all around the rural parts of China, you can usually get a pretty good cell phone signal in most places because they really have put a lot of money and effort into getting a cellular network set up everywhere around the country. 5G, however, like I said, is still having a lot of teething problems in China, and it's going to take a very long time before they can really penetrate into the rural areas with 5G in China properly. It's going to require something like 10 million base stations, something like that. And the costs to run 5G are just incredibly more than it costs to run 4G. And so you'll find local governments and local areas in China switching back to 4G, even if they have the 5G technology. At the end of the day, I'm all for technological progress. I'm happy that 5G is a thing. I'm very happy that we can continue to increase the bandwidth and speeds of our internet and our connected devices and the Internet of Things. That's kind of my deal. I love that stuff. But I will not accept that if you slap a 5G label on something, it's suddenly a revolutionary product. Remote-controlled anything is ancient technology. Remote-controlled surgery has been around since who knows when, the 90s. Connecting devices together has been around forever. And just because you can make that connection faster doesn't make the device any better. And that's what I'm trying to point out. This whole 5G nonsense you see everywhere is just a marketing tool concocted by the CCP to try and make China look more advanced. Anyway, unlike that fake hydrogen-powered 5G tractor that we exposed, and trust me, this is just the tip of the iceberg, stay awesome.